Hey everyone, today you're going to start your project using Scratch to explain how the mathic prediction works using algebraic expressions. So let's take a look at what it looks like behind the scenes in Scratch. Some of you may have already kind of previewed this just because you were curious in the original mathic prediction app, and here is what you're going to do this time. So before, you were given an opportunity to choose a number, a secret number, and do all the mental computations yourself and end up with the number one, which was the prediction, regardless of whatever number you chose. And in this case, you are going to show all of the different computations regardless of whatever number is chosen. So if you look on the screen, you can see that if we start, you can see that something happens and it says enter a thought of number below. And here you're going to enter the number you're thinking of. And it can be any number, and I'll just choose 7. And it automatically shows the number 7. And that's all we have so far. Your job is to complete all of the rest of the coding. And I know that sounds like it can be intimidating. It's not meant to be. And I'm going to show you how it can be done, and that every one of you who is doing this can actually show some success with this and actually be a little more creative than maybe you are in some of your other endeavors in math class. So there are 3 basic areas you're going to be operating in as far as the code. So you notice over here for coding, you have all these different categories: motion, looks, sound, events, control, sensing, operators, variables, and my blocks. You can create your own blocks. You are going to be working with 3 of these primarily, and you can add others if you want to, but you're going to be working with variables, operators, and events for the most part. You can add other things too if you want to. And if you look at the first sprite that's down there, you can see they all kind of fall into those same colors. I did add a sensing one just on the first one so that you could enter any number that you wanted. So you can see the colors are events, which is when clicked, the control, which is a little bit darker ones, like weight, and then the variables. There are no operators here because it's the first one, but you'll get to do the operators in a second. Every one of these little sprites down here, and that's what they're called in Scratch, you're going to have some kind of coding embedded for each one. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you how you can put these tiles together and how it works. So for the sprite add 3, this is called a sprite, and I've created the sprites for you on this one. If you want to change them, feel free to do that. You just click over here. You can either choose a sprite or you can paint one and create. That's what I did to create these. I wasn't really creative on this. I just wanted to get you introduced to how this works. So when I clicked on paint, I clicked the text box and I typed add 3, and then I just, it showed up down here on the bottom, and then I was done. So if you want to change what they look like or change the colors, you can feel free to do that. Just delete all of these. Just know that you're going to have to redo the coding, or you can copy the coding from this one that I've done for the first one that you have. So you can actually copy these. See how it's highlighted? You can you can click Control C or Command C, copy it, and then you can paste it into another sprite. So just know that you can do that. But we're going to go ahead and get started. And like I said, we're going to be doing mostly events and variables and operators, and you'll see that as we go through. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go to variables, and I want to create a variable. And actually, I have already done it. I just click on make a variable. The first variable I made was n, and that was for think of a number. So if I go back to sprite 1, you can see variable n is there. I just created it, and I used n because it's a number. You could use any variable. You could call it whatever you want, literally anything you could call it. But I just used number so I'd know what n stood for when I was going through this and looking at all the code later. For the second sprite, it's add 3, so I chose A because it's add. And what I'm going to do is in add 3, I'm going to say that I don't want to see the variable right away, so I want it hidden. So I'm going to go to events, and when we start, when that flag is clicked, that means to start running the app. When that's clicked, I want to hide the variable A. So I'm going to connect, and they just snap together. You can pull them apart, but if you don't pull them far enough, they'll snap right back together. You could always change the variable, but since I'm on add 3, I know that I want the variable A. So I'm going to hide the variable A initially. And another thing I want the variable A is I want to make sure that whenever I start, I want to make sure that A is 0, because if I do this a couple of times and I want to play this a couple of times and just see it work a couple of times, if I don't set it to 0, it's going to remain what it was the last time I went through it. So I'm going to set it to 0. What I'm also going to do is add another control here. And that control is when I receive control. And the reason I'm doing that is because in the first sprite, I had a broadcast control. And that broadcast control sends out a signal. And this is where I received that signal. You can see at the end of the first one, it says broadcast thought of number. That just means it's sending out a signal that the thought of number has been entered, and it's just broadcasting it to all the other sprites so that they know to kind of quote unquote listen for it. So when they receive that thought of number, I don't want it to happen right away. So I'm going to wait, and I can wait as long as I want. I'm going to put 2 seconds because 2 seconds is really a long enough time. And now, right at this point, variable A doesn't exist to somebody that's running this program. So I want it to show up. So now, once that message is received, I'm going to wait 2 seconds, and then variable A is going to pop up on the screen, and it'll be a little orange rectangle. And then it'll also be set at 0 because I've already set it at 0. So now I want to show it, and I've got it shown, show variable A, and then I don't want it to happen immediately because I want people to see that, hey, it's still at 0, but I don't want it to wait too long, so I want to maybe wait 1 or maybe 2 seconds again, because it's not too long. Wait 2 seconds, and then I want to go back to my variables, and I want to set A to the new value. I want that to show what it would be if I added 3 to it. So this is where the operators come in. And you can see right up here at the top, I've got just the basic operators, plus, minus, multiplication, and division. And this is the first one, so I think it's going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to drop that in there. Anytime we have ovals, they can be dropped in any other oval space. So A is no longer going to be 0. I want it to be whatever that thought of number was, plus 3. So what was my thought of number? I go back to my variables. My number was n. So I can actually take that n and drop it in that little spot, and then I want it to be n plus 3. So now I can test it out. Let's see how I did. Start it, waste it, and then I can drop a number in here, enter a number, let's say 8, and I can click enter, and it shows up 8. It can wait a few seconds, and look, it's 3 more than 8, because that's what I told it to do with the code. And then once I'm done, I can go on to my next sprite, because everything seems to be working pretty well so far. On the next screen, and this is where you're going to jump in, you're going to create a new variable, and you can call it, again, whatever you want. But when it's clicked, and you can kind of see what we did, kind of follow what we did here, but I need to make a variable first. So it can be, since it's double it, you could call it D for double, or whatever else you want. If you want to go in alphabetical order, since we started with A for add, you can go B for double. It doesn't matter. And just remember which variable stands for what. And I want to hide it. I'm going to set it to 0. And then you can also go back here on 3, and we can broadcast. So just like I did on the first one, you can broadcast a thought of numbers. So that's an event. And I can broadcast, I don't want to do it there. I want to do it in 3. And broadcast, and I just got to make a new one, a new message. You can call it maybe add 3, because that's what we just did. You can call it, again, you can call it whatever you want. Add 3, and then on this one you can add another thing when I receive, and then add when I receive is already there. So you can choose from anything. Choose when I receive, add 3, and you can kind of follow what we did here, but the computation is going to be a little bit different. And that kind of gets you started on your way. You can feel free to be creative and change the backdrop. There are a lot of different backdrops you can choose. Just don't make it too busy, because we won't be able to see the writing. So choose a backdrop that works here. Feel free to add other sprites that maybe aren't just words if you want to, but ultimately we want to make sure that the original number gets back to 1, and it shows up as you go. And if you have any other questions, please reach out to your teacher, and hopefully you'll have a good time and enjoy doing this. I know all of you can be successful, and I wish you the best.